Session 11, 31st October 2022. Session 11, 31st October 2022. We are on the third verse of Surah Al-Fatiha, Maliki Yawmuddin. The third verse, Maliki Yawmuddin. Only Allah, Rabb, the inexorably beneficent, the tremendously merciful, is the master of the day of acquittal, absolutely just retribution and reward based on every individual's performance as demanded by Quran and Sunnah. So today we continue with Surah Al-Ghashiyah, the 88th Surah of Quran, and begin from verse 13. فيها سرر مرفوعة فيها سرر مرفوعة. In it would be thrones, couches placed high above the treetop level, hundreds of page boys with hundreds of varieties of foods and drinks lined up below. Hundreds of page boys with hundreds of varieties of foods and drinks lined up below, right at the top of the world in every sense of the term. Right at the top of the world in every sense of the term. وَكَوَابٌ مَوْزُوعًا 88 Al-Ghashiyah verse 14. Translation: and unique, floriferous goblets of gold and crystal, well placed, embedded with diamonds for refreshing drinks to brighten up their gatherings. And unique floriferous goblets of gold and crystal, well placed, embedded with diamonds for refreshing drinks to brighten up the gatherings. Vanamariko Masfufa, Ghashiyah, verse 15. Translation: and cushions of velvet, silk, arranged in an orderly way, and cushions of velvet, silk, arranged in an orderly way. They'll be reclining, relaxing, like emperors and empresses, happy and carefree. Happy and carefree. Wazarabiyun Mubsusa, Al-Ghashiyah 16, translation: and perceptibly beautiful carpets laid out perfectly, and perceptibly beautiful carpets laid out perfectly. Ghashiyah verse 25 and 26. Inna ilayna iyabahum. Definitely, there is just no way. They have to return to us inevitably. Definitely, there is just no way. They have to return to us inevitably. Then, definitely on us is the task to hold their accountability. Then, definitely on us is the task to hold their accountability for every iota and every fig, for every iota and every fig to dispense justice. For that's the time to reap what man had heaped. For that's the time to reap what man had heaped. Al-Fajr, Surah Al-Fajr, 89 Surah, verse 22. وَجَاءَ رَبُّكَ وَالْمَلَكُ صَفًّا صَفًّا. Al-Fajr, verse 22, translation: and when your Rabb, Creator, would advent to dispense justice, and the angels arrayed in ranks, rows after rows in his honor. And when your Rabb, Creator, would advent to dispense justice, and the angels arrayed in ranks, rows after rows in his honor. Al-Fajr, verse 23. وجاء يومئذ بجهنم ويومئذ تذكر الإنسان وأنى له الذكرى. Translation: And on that day the forbidding, uninviting hell would be extended for the man to see it organically, for the man to see it organically. That day man would deliberate. That day man would deliberate, realize the truth, petrified, shocked, unable to move. Petrified, shocked, unable to move. How foolhardy, foolishly reckless, rash he was. How foolhardy, foolishly reckless, rash he was. But what a time and place to deliberate, realize. But what a time and place to deliberate, realize one's pig-headedness. He'll recall the history of failure can be summed up in 2 words: too late. He'll recall the history of failure can be summed up in 2 words: too late. And then he'll denounce his own self. And how painful is the denunciation, condemnation of one's own self. And how painful is the denunciation, condemnation of one's own self. And say, as a soliloquy to himself, and say, as a soliloquy to himself in agony and remorse. In denouement, that is the last part of the drama, when everything becomes clear. In denouement, that is the last part of the drama, when everything becomes clear. Alas, how good it would have been. Alas, how good it would have been if I had earned and made some investment for this day. If I had earned and made some investment for this day. He had been forewarned, foretold about the inevitability of the dire, gruesome day that these deeds forebode disaster. He never had the foretaste of such a misery. He never had the foretaste of such a misery, calamity before. He had been given the foreknowledge that none would have ever punished, and tormented as Allah would that day, and none would have tied and chained as him that day, as Allah that day. He had been foretold that disbelieving would foreclose man's entry into heaven. He had been foretold that disbelieving would foreclose man's entry into heaven, whereas piety and fear of Allah, Kamil fought as it should be, would not only forestall the fiery hell, it will earn him Allah's affection, grace, and honor. It would earn him Allah's affection, grace, and honor, and he who has earned his respect and bedded himself in his affection, and bedded himself in his affection, has won the might of Allah, the overmaster, to his assistance and well-being, immune to any harm, fear, or sorrow, in inner contentment, solace, and perfectly soothing peace. And perfectly soothing peace. Yakulo ya laitani kadamtu lihiyati. Excuse me. Al-Fajr 89 Surah verse 24. Translation. Then he would say in agony and remorse, how good it would have been. I wish I had earned and made some investment for this life in my first lifetime. He would say, I wish I had earned and made some investment for this life in my first lifetime. But he had demurred, showed objection, had some organic reservations about the Book of Allah. But he had demurred, showed objection, had some organic reservations about the Book of Allah, and only read how to invest and become a billionaire double time, and only read how to invest and become a billionaire double quick, or how to usurp the mineral resources of other nations, or how to usurp the mineral resources of other nations. Al-Fajr verse 26. Wala yusiku wasakahu ahad. And this and these bloodsuckers, bloody minded people, disbelievers, sinful believers would be constrained to fidget or scratch their bodies, would be constrained to fidget or scratch their bodies, for none would have tied and chained as him that day. For none would have tied and chained as him, as Allah, that day. Now, Surah Shams, 91st Surah, Surah Shams, verse 1 to 10. وَالشَّمْسُ وَضُحَاهَا وَالْقَمَرَ إِذَا تَلَاهَا وَالنَّهَارِ إِذَا جَلَّاهَا وَاللَّيْلِ إِذَا يَغْشَاهَا وَالسَّمَاءِ وَمَا بَنَاهَا وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا طَحَاهَا وَنَفْسٍ وَمَا سَوَّاهَا فَأَلْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا قَدْ أَفْلَحَ مَنْ زَكَّاهَا وَقَدْ خَابَ مَنْ دَسَّاهَا. Translation. By the sun when it is noon, by the sun when it is noon, and as it tracks sunset, the moon, and as it tracks sunset, the moon, and the day at its bloom, and the day at its bloom, and the prevailing night concealing the sun, which follows soon, and the prevailing night concealing the sun, which follows soon, and the sky and he who built it blue in bloom, and the sky and he who built it blue in bloom, and the earth and he who spread it easy to groom, and the earth and he who spread it easy to groom, and the perfect soul and the one who made it, and the perfect soul and the one who made it, able to do good or bad wherever it looms, and the perfect soul and the one who made it, able to do good or bad wherever it looms, then awarded a mind, awarded a mind that deciphers the evil from the right that blooms, then awarded a mind that deciphers the evil from the right that blooms. Success is for him who purifies his soul of lust and luster for the fear of doom. Success is for him who purifies his soul of lust and luster for the fear of doom. And ruined is he who in lust and pleasure, and ruined is he who in lust and pleasure corrupts himself in dust and gloom. And ruined is he who in lust and pleasure corrupts himself in dust and gloom. That's all for today. Please pray for me. Ex Brigadier Mustansir Billah.